The decision wasn't delivered with anger. It was delivered with ice-cold finality, and the moment it landed, everyone inside the palace knew nothing would ever be the same again. Just before sunrise, as aides moved quietly through the corridors of Kensington Palace, a short statement prepared for release sat on a single desk. Insiders later claimed that Prince William had reread it more than a dozen times through the night. No emotional language, no room for negotiation, just a firm boundary that insiders say was meant to end years of unresolved tension with Meghan Markle. And when that boundary finally went public, the stillness shattered. But this moment didn't come out of nowhere. For weeks, the atmosphere inside the royal household had reportedly been changing. Conversations grew shorter, briefings grew heavier, and behind closed doors, something was building that could no longer be ignored. Those close to the future king suggest he felt pressure from every direction at once: family loyalty on one side, duty to the institution on the other. And right in the middle of it all stood a father the palace was deeply protective of. King Charles III. Reports claim the king's recent health struggles quietly accelerated everything, not because of fear alone, but because of urgency, a sense that the monarchy couldn't afford another prolonged storm. William, now carrying more responsibility than ever, apparently believed the window for soft handling had closed. Still, what truly forced his hand wasn't public criticism. It was what began surfacing in the background. Sources suggest that renewed US media narratives had been quietly forming stories hinting at a possible reset, a rebrand, a relaunch. On the surface, it looked harmless, inspirational even, but inside palace briefings, staff reportedly started noticing something troubling: the timing of certain stories, the repetition of specific talking points, and most unsettling of all, subtle implications aimed not at the institution, but at one very specific person, Catherine, Princess of Wales. That's when everything stopped being theoretical. According to insiders, William's mood shifted when indirect claims began circling about internal rifts and emotional strain. Nothing officially confirmed, nothing directly stated, but enough to plant doubt in the public mind. And for him, that crossed a line. This wasn't just crown business anymore. This was personal, deeply personal, and it's rumored that this is the exact moment his silence began to feel like betrayal rather than restraint. But he wasn't the only one watching. Behind the scenes, a figure known for duty over diplomacy had already drawn a hard conclusion. Princess Anne, long regarded as the monarchy's spine of steel, reportedly saw the situation as a direct threat to royal stability. To her, tradition wasn't emotional, it was structural. And once structure starts to crack, everything above it becomes vulnerable. Her message to William, according to palace whispers, was blunt: delay would only make the damage worse. Then came the most unexpected alliance of all. For decades, the public viewed her as an outsider who fought her way in. But in this moment, insiders say Queen Camilla became one of William's strongest private supporters. Not out of rivalry, not out of politics, but out of experience. She had lived through relentless public warfare once before, and she recognized the early patterns immediately. The fear wasn't backlash. The fear was exhaustion. Another cycle like the last one could cost the king more than just peace of mind. With those two voices aligned, the conversation inside the palace reportedly changed overnight. By late November, briefings grew sharper. Legal and communications teams were quietly standing by, and the idea of another gentle, open-ended statement was slowly abandoned. William, sources suggest, wasn't interested in noise. He wanted stillness. The kind of stillness that only comes after something is finally, unmistakably resolved. The final closed-door meeting is rumored to have taken place inside Buckingham Palace. No raised voices, no public drama, just documents, risk projection, and one unavoidable truth: the longer ambiguity survived, the more power it gained. And where ambiguity thrives, chaos follows. When the discussion turned to timing, the room reportedly went quiet. Christmas was approaching. Tradition, unity, symbolism. Launching anything during that window would amplify every ripple tenfold. That's when William is said to have made the call. If a line was going to be drawn, it had to be drawn before the noise could return. He wanted one thing above all else: finality. The statement that followed was described by insiders as surgically clean, no accusations, no emotional language, just a declaration that future coordination, engagement, and alignment would no longer continue, not as punishment, not as retaliation, but as a protective measure for the crown, for his father, and for the family he now leads. When the words hit the airwaves, the reaction was instant. In the UK, early broadcasts from BBC broke the silence with urgency usually reserved for national emergencies. Analysts didn't debate what had been said, they debated what had been left out. No ongoing discussions, no future reconsideration, just a clear door closing. Across the Atlantic, CNN carried the story with a different tone, part disbelief, part fascination. How could a relationship that once symbolized modern unity reach a point this absolute? Pundits searched for hidden subtext, but royal insiders insisted there was none. The message was exactly what it appeared to be. Behind palace walls, the emotional atmosphere reportedly shifted again, not lighter but steadier. Aides no longer questioned what direction they were moving in. Foreign partners were briefed with a single instruction: the matter is closed. For an institution built on centuries of slow, careful language, that kind of clarity was almost jarring. Inside Clarence's house, it said the king processed the news quietly. No outburst, no objection, just a long silence. He had always hoped for healing without separation, but leadership rarely gives you the luxury of perfect endings. Sometimes it only gives you necessary ones. And on the other side of the world, those near Meghan's circle describe a very different kind of silence. Not dramatic, not explosive, just stillness. The kind that follows a realization you can't argue your way out of anymore. By that evening, the monarchy had subtly reset its posture. Not with celebration, not with triumph, but with containment. The storm that once threatened to spiral endlessly had finally hit a wall. What makes this moment so heavy isn't who won or who lost, it's what it represents. A future king choosing boundary over hope, a father choosing stability over emotion, and an institution choosing containment over chaos. For the public, it feels like the closing of a chapter that never truly settled. For the family itself, it reportedly feels more like controlled grief than victory, because when a line like this is drawn, it doesn't just separate roles, it separates people. And maybe that's the hardest part to accept. Not every conflict ends in reconciliation. Not every fracture heals with time. Sometimes peace only arrives when uncertainty is finally told to stop speaking. And as the palace lights dim on this chapter, one thing is quietly undeniable. Whatever comes next for the monarchy will now unfold without looking back.